Welcome back. We've been building a streaming music service in Phoenix and Elixir. In the last video, we were working some on the front end. Particularly, we were doing some work on the audio player when we left off. And I'd like to continue with that in this video. So we had just gotten it to where it would load the next song when a song is finished. And this is essentially working on here, but there's a couple of things that I want to refine about it before we move forward. So real quick, since the last video, I did add this event listener on can play through. So we were loading the next audio at the end of a song, but we were not playing it. And so this does that. And in adding that, I thought of a couple of things. One is it takes a little time to load enough of the media that the browser is going to be comfortable saying, yes, we can play this. That's what the can play through event's about. There's a can play event as well that says we have enough data to start playing, but there's no guarantee. In fact, the browser suspects you will not be able to play through the media without having to wait and load more. So this can play through uses whatever heuristic or rules they have for saying, okay, well, we think that you're going to need to load this much of the media before we have confidence of not having to pause partway through. And we don't want to pause partway through. We'd rather pause between songs, right? So this is the right event to watch to know that we should start playing. Now, that being the case, we're going to, on the play event, when it does start playing, we're going to be moving the current time or the playhead into the song to synchronize it with other people who are listening, so with the stream, right? And that, if you had an internet connection to where it took, say on average 3 to 5 seconds, and that would be a pretty slow, I think, internet connection, 3 to 5 seconds, to buffer enough of the song that the browser was comfortable, then you would be clipping 3 to 5 seconds off the beginning of each song, which is probably noticeable on some songs, and unpleasant. So the simplest way to resolve that is to deliberately insert some gap between the songs server side. So we're going to come back and do that. There's a second way to help address that I thought of, which, well, let me back up. So an obvious way to address that is to start buffering the next song before we need it, right? And I could do that. I could have two audio players and like flip them back and forth, right? Like load one, have it on deck, and then when it's ready, start playing it. That's a little tricky with its interaction with like the hardware buttons we were talking about earlier and the system knowing which of those audio players is active. And I could imagine it interacting poorly with kind of the autoplay mitigations that modern browsers use, so that a page that comes up can't just start playing things. I think if you've expressed an intent to listen to something on a page, like it should let other elements also play, but I doubt that they test that extensively. We'd be doing something a little out of the norm to flip two audio players back and forth and think that we would have permission to have either of them play on command at any time, and to expect that the system would know in all cases and never get like tripped up as to which one a hardware button should be playing or pausing. We could easily end up with two songs playing at the same time or something crazy like that. And I think it's just a room full of corners to go into. We'd have a lot of corner cases to try and cover. So I don't prefer that method. Another option that occurred to me is to use the media source API. There's a JavaScript API where instead of setting a source URL, like a network location for a file, as the source on a HTML media element, you can set a media source object as the source. And then it's up to you and your code to load media onto that in buffers, remove buffers once they're used up, set the seek range and all of these things. That's a possible option, and probably like the best fit in kind of the JavaScript APIs for the browser for this. And in fact, we could even do video alongside that for the background and maybe some other things that would make sense. Two downsides that are keeping me away from it right now is it's a lot of responsibility to take into my code rather than let the browser deal with it in a sensible way, which means more to write, more to debug, more to go wrong. The other thing is it's still a fairly new API. In fact, I think it's still in experimental status. And the browser support's not super broad, which, you know, fine, if we needed it, I think, you know, like these browsers here might be a reasonable target set even so, if it was really critical to providing a good experience. But the fact it's still experimental and probably changing as time goes on, and we don't know how what bugs we're going to find in different browsers and how easy they'll be to work around. I'd prefer not to use it if I don't need it. I'm happy that it's available if I do, though. So that's why I lean towards these, like, there's some tricks we can play because it's audio and because it's separate songs. It's not weird, like if you're listening to broadcast radio, to have a small gap between songs, you know, like it depends on how the two songs are trimmed, and, you know, if they're using like a computer to run the station, if they've got enough songs queued up, that's great. But, you know, if the DJ's like furiously like, oh no, I gotta get the next thing, you could have more or less of a gap. And I think that's okay. You know, of course, we'll try it out once it's in a state where I can listen to it and see like, oh, how is this? And I'll get feedback from folks to find out for sure. But I think we're safe to have a gap of a few seconds between songs. In the previous prototypes, the gap strictly depended on your internet speed. So if it was slow, you'd have more of a gap. If it was not, you'd have less. But I actually suspect that the gap can be quite long before it becomes obtrusive. I think it could be 5 seconds or more before it's unpleasant. And as I say, I think 3 seconds covers us pretty well, even on relatively slow or even internet connections with some latency, you know, like a geosynchronous satellite link or something like that. I think 3 seconds is going to cover us. But we'll try it out and find out. Then there's a fallback to that too, which is if I put the gap in, that should allow the songs to just set a little further apart in the stream, right? And that further apart should be, you know, when this one ends, if we start loading, then by the time it's time for this one to start, we'll be loaded enough, hopefully. Another option is to allow some slack when we're starting to play. If we say, oh, we need to jump 4 seconds into this song, we could pick an amount of time, say even 15 or 20 seconds, and say, you know, if the amount we're going to jump in is less than this, we're not jumping in. We're going to just let this listener slip out of sync with the stream some. And what'll happen is once that gap or that slippage gets to be as big as a bumper or another announcement, it will simply skip that and make up that time. And so as long as the bumpers come frequently enough to absorb whatever additional lag there is, then that should be fine. If it gets worse than that, then it will jump like 20 seconds into a song, which is not real cool. We could make the slippage like as long as a song, which may be an option if we run into it. I don't think that's a problem as long as it's very uncommon. I don't think it's a big problem to be that much out. I'd like the streams to be reasonably well synchronized between listeners in case they would like to participate in perhaps like a future chat. Or if, coworkers wanted to say to each other like, oh, did you just hear, this thing? I think that that's good for the service to be like a shared social experience, whether it's in person or online. I think that helps create a community around it and a stickiness, to the service. And that's really like one of the big things that this iteration of the project is about, is to create that synchronization. So let's, what do we want to do? So one of the big things, if we're going to put a gap between songs, is we need to correctly handle the case where the offset into the song could be negative. And we need to handle that anyway, because we're also doing the thing where we don't play like the last few seconds of a song. Remember, server side is we have that next threshold setting. And so we wouldn't play like just the very tail end of a song. Instead, we would play silence for a little bit until the next song was ready. So for both of those cases, we're going to need to correctly handle negative offsets into a song. And I think we'll handle that right here, where in Can Play Through, where we're ready to start playing, but we don't want to play yet if it's not time yet. So let's instead, we'll say like, if this dot duration minus audio remaining over 1000 is less than 0. So, and maybe we want to put this into a variable. Then we could set a timeout. And we'll do this dot play at the end of the timeout, right? Here, what if offset equals offset greater than 0, 0. Well, let's say less than 0, offset otherwise 0. So we'll limit offset to be less than 0. And then we could actually eliminate this conditional and only have one code branch and just use offset, right? And so if the offset's 0, then this will just execute on the next spin through the event loop, right? Okay. I think that works. That doesn't work at all. Because this is not no longer defined. Well, we don't need to, so we can just say audio player. Okay, so that loaded up. We don't have the test case yet where that's negative, but we can get it easily enough. It just takes time. Or, let's pop over at this point and make a note to add in that gap. Next play. Item's fine. Started now. So here's where we would, let's put a to-do here. Add a configurable gap between audio plays. So the client has time to load the media. Okay, So we'll just make a note to do that later. I mean, right now we're just running on my computer. It's pretty negligible, the amount of time, but I want that before we go live, and I want to play around with it too a little before we go live. So we'll probably do that in a future video. Okay, so we got 20 seconds left. If I wait for this to get under 10 seconds and reload, we should see a negative offset, right? Because it should produce the next audio play, right? That's interesting. Oh. Yeah, so it probably did that, but we show the time remaining, and so it just probably showed that. What did it come up at, like 3:05? Spotlight fritzed out on me, and then the Finder wanted to open it in music, which is where I did not want it open. So it says here the length of this song is 3:07. So I don't think that it did add that on. So I'm going to add a little debug line here, and so we can see a little better what's going on. And I'm going to probably pop out, and I'm not going to make you sit here and watch this count down, and maybe I'll even add something to like make that quicker so I can iterate on this more rapidly. But audio remaining. Current audio, something like that. It's just, I'm going to get this out of here, so. Remaining. So, yeah, it's a little surprising to me that that wouldn't, I mean, that's pretty straightforward. So the metadata age should be 0 at that point, and yeah, okay. Well, I'm gonna play around with this a little. I'll be right back. So I think I got this figured out. What's going on is so I tapped in to see the duration and the elapsed time when we're computing the remaining time. And the elapsed time, like when there's still 9 seconds left shown in the player, is milliseconds over here. And I'm like, how can that be? Well, that can be because that's how I wrote it, is if we come back over here, we're doing started at now, and that's wrong. Like, first of all, we want to add some gap to that we were just talking about, but it's wrong because it didn't start now. It didn't start 10 seconds before the previous song ended. It starts when the previous song ends, and then we'd like to also add a gap. So that's why we didn't get that negative amount there to test what we had written in the front-end code. So this is a sticky wicket. This needs to be fixed here. It needs to be fixed over in the backgrounds. And I'd like to fix it before I press forward with the front-end stuff, because I'd like to see that we're on the right track with this idea before I go and build a bunch of stuff that may depend on it or interact with it. So let's figure this out right now, and then we can move forward. So what I would really like to have here is this, the end time from this last play. And so we can calculate that, and then we'll also have to pass it through on this next play function. We'll do not just now, but the started time, which is fine. So let's take a look back on the play module and see, we should be able to calculate the end time. Calculate the end time for the play returns end time. Returns calculate the ending date time for the play. Ending. Okay. Started, ending. Calculate the date time for when the play will have ended. Okay. Def. Ended. Struct. And we need to know, we don't need to know when now is. So we know struct that started. There's probably something on date time for, yep. Date time amount to add and then the unit. Cool. We can do that. And struct that started. The amount to add is struct that item that duration. And the unit is millisecond. Okay, so that should get us what we need there. And we only need that here. Last ended equals play last ended, last ended, last ended. Let's see if that works. Won't make you sit and watch, but I don't mind listening to this music. I like it a lot. So I'll sit here and listen to this song and watch this background and let you know how it ends up. Yeah, it totally works now. In fact, you should hear this. Oh, I didn't hit the play. Well, anyway. Yeah, it totally works. We got the negative elapsed, and we got this remaining time, which is well longer than a bumper. So that's what we wanted there. And we'll still come back later, but this gives us good infrastructure here to add in a configurable amount. So that's nice. And so let's pop over, and we need to get this same logic onto the backgrounds, although it's a lot less critical there. But, you know, why not do it right? So we'll get that in here, and I think that's fine to just copy pasta, which is... And yet I think it's fine. So then, yeah, so we need last ended, ended on last, and then we'll pass in last ended, and then down here, yeah, last ended, last ended. Okay, and I don't think we're gonna need to put a gap on the backgrounds. Like, that's fine. We're not gonna like synchronize the exact like what frame we're on in the backgrounds or anything. That's, as long as they start within 10 seconds of each other, that's great. So we'll just go with that. And let's just make sure that that runs. It runs. Okay, so let's commit those couple of things. And then this is, we're still working on correct play start time calculation. Okay. Okay, so that's solved hopefully. And oops, you know what I did? I left these little IO.inspects in here. Can't be doing that. Add lib lo-fi limo audio play.ex. Yeah. Commit. Amend. Boom. Okay. So that's good. Okay. So let's get back to what we were working on. You know, sometimes that's how it goes, especially when you're programming with me, is you just catch something like, oh, you know what I should have did there. Yeah. Nice thing about, you know, working, there's a lot of upsides to working on a team, especially, you know, like a medium to bigger size team gives you like a huge amount of like firepower to use on a project. But one of the upsides of working solo is that you can just do stuff like that. Like, you don't have to be like, oh, hey, buddy, I was looking at the thing you wrote and I couldn't help but notice. And then they're going to be like, oh, you know, I think I could take a look at that a week from next Tuesday. And then you're just kind of like, okay, well, I'll pretend it's fixed until then. Try not to bleed on everything. Yeah. One of the upsides. Big downside is there's never enough time to do everything you want to do when you're working solo, but I enjoy it. I enjoy working with a team too. So what were we doing? Do you remember? We were chooching around in here, weren't we? We just got that timeout set for when it's a negative offset. Yeah, I'd kind of like to instrument this a little. And yeah, let's put the offset on there, huh? Something happened. Oh yeah, no, it works fine, ship it. You let me ship that? Nothing about this works fine. Copy pasta. It's always dangerous. Oh yeah? Oh, okay, well that's wrong too. What? Where are we seeing this? Yeah. We ran into this before, didn't we? But what was the context? Oh, so we're trying to commit. So this only wants this to be to the millisecond. Oh, so we probably solved that. Where? Here. Yeah. There's your trouble. Last ended. We're not gonna. So there's two problems. Man, two big problems. Whoa, what was those warnings about, huh? Oh, they're lost in time like tears in the rain. Time to die. Wow, seriously though, where'd they go? There they were. Variable now is unused. No kidding, we just don't use it here anymore. So right. Why would we? Diggity. Okay. Oh, well, there's still something wrong. Boy, a lot happens fast, doesn't it? Oh, wow. Wow, man. I shouldn't have ate so much for dinner. I'm logy and slipping. He's slipping. That worked. Okay, looks like we get to amend that commit again. So glad that's an option. What did we change? Oh, we fixed the main thing. Okay. So, that should be working now. Once more for the second time. It's great working without a net. I feel very, very confident letting you see how the sausage is made, right? Oh well, this is what I signed up for. So that's how it goes. Yeah, so I instrumented this a little so we can take a peek at what offset we're getting and have some confidence that this isn't going to try and start playing before it should, because I'm not going to be quick enough to like reload this, find the play button, hit the play button. I could try. I got not that good at reflexes though, is what I'm betting. So let's just chill out to this for a second, and we'll do it, okay? Oh, yeah, I shouldn't have hit the play. Hitting the play doesn't, because it's, yeah. Well, that should be fine. Because you wouldn't normally, like, come in and, I mean, you could come on and bounce on that right away, and then you're going to be behind the stream a little. Which brings us to our second thing, which is when this finishes, well, no, that's going to be fine. It'll just wait. But ideally, we're not. Okay, so that works. I'm happy. I see this negative number here. That's what I really wanted to see, is that we have an offset, and in fact it should be minus the offset. Yeah, I have some reasonable confidence this will work. I'd like to see it work later. Should we just make it work now? Yeah, I think so. I think I'd feel better seeing it actually work. So let's get over here. Env equals fetch env, and then play, so the gap equals keyword dot fetch and gap, and so that'll be last ended. Oh, we got to do a little date time math. Last ended gap. Millisecond. Okay. Okay, so that should. Oh no, but we shouldn't do just fetch env. We gotta do the thing. Opts equals opts plus, and then we'll pull that off opts so we can test that when we get to writing some tests later. I don't know if I'll do videos of that or if I'll just hammer them out myself one afternoon, but I don't know, let me know. Let me know if you'd like to see the test get written. Let me know down in the comments. If you let me know before I get to it, I might do a video. Okay, so that's seems right-ish. And then we need to actually make that configuration. Gap. And let's do 3 seconds to start with, huh? Lots happened since then. Okay, we're up. All right, so we'll get to see how that behaves, and yeah, I'll probably, what do we do after that? So another concern I have is this this timeout that loads the next audio is like, this is not, no. So it should, it's fine. Let's think for a second. So is it fine if it, so it's not fine if it gets called before the song is finished playing. So like if they started ahead of the stream, if the listener started ahead of the stream, because we can start them as up to 10 seconds before the stream the way it's configured now. We don't want to cut 10 seconds off the end of the song and load the next song. So that's not cool. So at the, well, the remaining should cover that case, right? Because the remaining will be, oh, right, because if they started the stream 10 seconds early, they heard 10 seconds of silence at the beginning. They didn't start hearing the song unless they came in and hammered on play, but in which case then they'll hear the 10 seconds of silence at the end. Oh good, look at, we got minus 2.1 seconds. That's interesting. So it took 900 milliseconds for everything to spin around, even with zero bandwidth, or zero bandwidth constraint. This is running on the same machine. So we already had 900 milliseconds of total latency between like the front end code, the browser, everything, right? So that's kind of interesting. Doesn't look to me like most of it was in the server, but you know, everything adds up. So yeah, we may need to make it more like 5 seconds to accommodate folks who will need a little time to buffer. But we can tune that. That's why I wanted to make it configurable. And we'll test it. So this covers the case. They won't load the song too early. And if it runs late, that's fine too. So actually this does work. I was concerned that we would have to watch the, for an event on the audio player, the media element, to tell us that the song had finished playing. But I think I've talked myself out of that. Let me know if I'm missing something down in the comments. But yeah, I think that covers all of our cases there now that I've talked it through. Thank you for helping with that. Yeah, well, so we got that working. That's nice. I think what I want to do next, and this will be in the next video. I see we're getting towards time on this one. I think what I want to look at in the next video is, I don't mind if we get rid of like one of these song timers. I think I've checked out everything I want to. I might play with it a little bit between this video and next, and if I find something interesting, I'll let you know. But I think by next video, I'll be ready to scratch that. And what I want to get in there instead is a little message that tells what's going on with the audio. So while it's loading, it says it's loading. If something goes wrong and it's not going to be able to load, and we know that, we should say that. And some things like that. And then when that's built out nice, oh, I'm sorry. Before we do any of that, we need to do what we've just done for the audio for the background, so that we don't just see the same background, that it actually catches up with the stream. But that should be simpler than what we did here. So we'll get that done, then we'll do all of this stuff I'm talking about. Yeah, look at that. That worked pretty well. Or did it? Look at that, that's a solid 3 seconds off, huh? I'll play around with that a little. I'm not 100% sold on that. I'm gonna look through the log here, and maybe I'll put a little thing in this timeout too. In fact, let's just do it. Audio player can play through timeout. Don't really need to put anything in there. Or do we? Yeah, I think kind of a weird, yeah, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to put it there and watch it. So that's, well, among the things that I will take a look at between this video and the next to see that that's working right. And if it's not, I'll let you know and we'll fix it. Or I'll fix it and I'll let you know what I did to fix it. But yeah, so we'll do the same thing on the backgrounds next time. And then we'll get into, I want to get rid of one of those time remaining timers. You know, a man with 2 watches never knows what time it is. So we'll get down to 1 watch, the right one. And then instead of that, I want to put a little message in that gives us some notion of what's going on with the audio player. You know, just part of being transparent with the listener and letting them understand what the program is doing on their behalf, and help them build an accurate mental model of what the computer's doing so that they feel confident with it and can make correct predictions about how it's going to behave. So I think that's important in writing software, is to help the user of it understand what it's doing and make predictions about it that will come true. And then that builds their confidence with it, and it makes them feel like they can trust it and like they're in control of the computer, which is how it should be. They should always be in control of the computer. It's their computer. And to the extent that we use the computer as an extension of ourselves and our minds, that's even more important. We hadn't ought to be, as programmers, we hadn't ought to be taking control or being dishonest with something that's an extension of the people who ultimately pay us. It's enough philosophy. I'm going to wrap this video up. Please let me know if I did something crazy or dumb in the programming that I didn't already catch, because I know I caught some things I did that weren't right. Please let me know down in the comments, and or if you have any questions about, hey, why'd you do it this way, or you know, why do you use that strategy or not a different one? Let me know that too. I like chatting with folks. We can learn something from each other. If there's any issues with the video itself, feedback you want to give me on that, things you'd like me to do, not do, please let me know. And so yeah, till the next one, take care.